All right, so welcome back, brothers and sisters. Yashua Kanas, which stands for the Congregation of Israel. We going into chapter 21. It seems to have a little more verses than chapter 35. Chapter 20. We're gonna move swiftly and pull out as the Holy Spirit see fit. Some scriptures link up to some verses. All right, so Acts chapter 21. So as Paul finished speaking to the elders and he departed, they accompanied him to the ship, and now he departed. So let's continue on. Verse 21 says, "And it came to pass that after we were gotten from them," meaning they left the people and had lunch, we came with a straight course unto Cus, and the day following unto Rhodes, and from thence unto Patara. And finding a ship sailing over unto Phoenicia, we went aboard and set forth. Now, when we had discovered Cyprus, we left it on the left hand and sailed unto Syria and landed at Tyre. For there the ship was to unlade her burden. Very interesting here. The ship were to unlade their burden. Now bear in mind, when the ship carried loads of merchandise coming from one place to another for commerce, the ship is heavy. And now it says the ship carried a burden. Imagine us carrying burden, comparing that to the ship carrying burden. The burden that the ship carry supposed to be good for the owner of the products that's on that ship, where they're gonna make goods with it and sell them to people, or they're gonna be put to people's benefit, what's on the ship. Same way when we carry on burden, especially when we following the law, statutes, and commandments, and we have affliction comes, we should take the affliction the same way the ship carrying burden, but at the end, the good will come out of it and it will benefit other people. So those of us who are following the law, statutes, and commandments, when we go through burden, we should use that later on to transform it into good service to people, meaning learn from our affliction, learn from our experience on carry on those burden, rather than just see straight burden and see it as something bad. So we got to see it the other way around on a positive side. So let's read a scripture on burden and affliction. Hebrews 12 and verse 11. Hebrews chapter 12 and verses 11. No one wants to carry burden, but if burden will be carried, provided that we are not keeping the law, statute, and commandment, and we lost it, so to regain it back, we have to go through burden of affliction like a gold is tried in furnace to regain it. Because we lost it. But it's not always a bad thing going through burden, as hard and mind altering that can be. All right, so 12 and 11 reads, "Now no chastening for the present seemeth to be joyous, but grievous. Nevertheless, afterward it yieldeth the peaceable fruits of righteousness unto them which are exercised thereby. Wherefore lift up the hands which hang down. Okay, verse 11. All right, so take the affliction, because when we exercise righteousness and carry on the affliction, later on it can be transformed into something beneficial to yourself and to help other people who may be going through the same situation that you are going through. Similar to what we've just read here in Acts the 22nd chapter, Acts the 21st chapter and verse 3, where the ship is carrying burden. So I just wanted between us carrying burden. Verse 4, in finding disciples, we tarried there 7 days. So they stayed there. They find some students there, right? Students of the laws of the Moses about the kingdom. They found some of them there. So they stayed there for 7 days. Who said to Paul, through the Spirit, that he should not go up to Jerusalem? All right, so they told Paul through the Spirit to not go up to Jerusalem. In verse 5, and when we had accomplished those days, so when they finished passing those days there, we departed and went our way, and they all brought us on our way with wives and children till we were out of the city. So they went to accompany them all the way through. They bring their wife and children, right, to greet them, and because they were happy that the disciples were there and Paul were there. And we kneeled down on the shore and prayed. Verse 6. And when we had taken our leave one to another, we took ship and they turned home again. All right, so they boarded on the ship to continue the journey. Verse 7. And when we had finished our course from Tyre, we came to Ptolemais and saluted the brethren and abode with them 1 day. So they stayed there with the brothers there in Ptolemais for 1 day. Verse 8. And the next day, we that were of Paul's company departed and came unto Caesarea, and we entered into the house of Philip the evangelist. So an evangelist is similar to a disciple that focused on convert people from their worldly way to the way of righteousness, to follow Christ. All right, so it says, which was one of the 7 and abode with him. And the same man had 4 daughters. Right, the same man that we talking about here had 4 daughters, virgin which did prophesy. So when we read here, virgins, it means young women, right? Young women which did prophesy. So for verse 21, you can go back to Acts, the 2nd chapter and the 17th verse.
For verse what?
For verse 8. For verse 9. Verse 9. Acts, the 2nd chapter and 17. Come on. right, so Acts 2 in verse 17 reads, and it shall come to pass in the last day, saith God, I will pour out my spirit upon all flesh, and your sons and your daughters shall prophesy, and your young men shall see vision, and your old men shall dream dreams. So right here we see that men right had 4 daughters which prophesied. So now, as we touched on earlier today, prophecy is the act of reading the scriptures, seeing what's happening, and see the conduct of the people, and you see if it matches, right? And then you can go and prophesy if they continue in that behavior, is what would happen. So the daughters right here, they prophesied, right? Things that are seen in the scripture to see if they're in line with what the people are doing and warn them.
All right, so this is Luke chapter 2.
Luke chapter 2. Yeah.
Luke chapter 2 and verse 36.
Yep, I see.
And it reads, Luke chapter 2, 36. And there was one Anna, a prophetess, the daughter of Phanuel of the tribe of Asher.
36, right?
Yeah. She was of a great age and had lived with an husband 7 years from her virginity, right? So 7 years from the time that she got her virginity is when she went and met her husband, married her husband, right? Somewhere maybe, I don't know, I speculate, 18, 19, something like that, right? But then he died and she became a widow, right? But it called her a prophetess, right? So it says, verse 37, and she was a widow of about 84 years. 80 is 80, and 4 years, so 84 years she was in her widowhood, which departed not from the temple, but served God with fasting and prayers night and day, right? Now it says in verse 38, and she coming in that instant gave thanks likewise unto the Lord, and spake of him to all them that looked for redemption in Jerusalem. So all of those that was present, she went and spoke about our salvation, what was promised to us, what was to come, the Savior coming. So she prophesied about these things that in time we will receive what is due to us based on the scriptures.
Right.
Now, when you go to Revelation chapter 19, Revelation chapter 19 and verse 10. So Revelations 19 and 10, it says, and I fell at his feet to worship him. This is John the Revelator at the feet of the angel. And he said unto me, see thou do it not. Meaning, don't bow down to me. Why? He says, because I am thy fellow servant and of thy brethren that have the testimony of Yahushua. Worship Yahweh. For the testimony of Yahushua is the spirit of prophecy. So when you are now speaking about Yahushua, you now, if you're fully in the zone, you are prophesying. Now, when you speak about Yahushua and how he's going to come back and how he's going to judge the nations and how he's going to redeem and how he's going to now set people in their right, all of that is the spirit of prophecy if you are now following it as it is written and you follow the record as the Most High has given to all the rest of the apostles and prophets and things from the past. So this woman, as a prophetess, she was doing just that. Right. This man, Philip, who was one of the 7, when it says one of the 7, remember back in Acts the 6th chapter, they chose out 7 men without blame in order to tend to the tables for the widowhood, right? So now they going to Philip's house. He got 4 daughters who are virgins, but they go out and they speak about things pertaining to the kingdom. Right? That's what that's going into.
Cool. All right. So go back to Acts chapter 21, verse 9. And the same man had 10 now. And as we tarried there many days, there came down from Judea a certain prophet named Agabus. And when he was come unto us, he took Paul's girdle and bound his own hands and feet, and said, Thus saith the Jews, it says, Thus and said the Holy Ghost, thus saith the Holy Ghost, so shall the Jews at Jerusalem bind the man that owneth this girdle, and shall deliver him unto the hands of the Gentiles. So that man right here, he came in, he took the girdle that Paul had, he tied himself hand and feet, and then he prophesied saying, this is what's going to happen. Whoever owned this girdle, the men that owned this girdle, that's what's going to happen to him. They're going to take him and bind him when he get to Jerusalem. So that's a prophecy he made based on what's going to happen to Paul right, when he gets to Jerusalem.
Right, so you see that this man, we touched on him before, Agabus, right? Back in Acts 11 and 27.
Mm-hmm.
Back in Acts 11 and 27, it says, And in these days came prophets from Jerusalem unto Antioch, how driven by the Spirit of the Most High, right? It says, and there stood up one of them named Agabus, the same Agabus that we're reading about now, and signified by the Spirit of the Most High, Yahweh working through him, that there should be a great dearth throughout all the world. So at the time of what we're reading here, it says, which came to pass in the days of Claudius Caesar. So prior to Claudius Caesar coming into power, he prophesied there was going to be a great famine in the whole earth. Right? So the Lord had different men who was not amongst the 12, who was running around with Peter and Paul, and then there was other men that was out there doing the work. Right? You don't read about them so much all the time with the main 12, but they also been led of the Spirit doing the work. So that lets you know that, like how Yahweh told Nicodemus, the Spirit come here, the Spirit go there. It comes in this fashion and goes over the spiritless. It goes anywhere. So you got different men and women all over the world that's doing this work, that's being led of the Spirit to be led as a vessel to go and teach and see certain things.
Right.
So that's what was going on here with this man, that he was used as a prophet to bring signs. He was a real prophet to speak about things that hadn't happened yet, that was about to happen. And here he is now speaking about the fate that was going to have to happen to Paul when he went to Jerusalem.
And we're going to see what Paul's reaction once they deliver him the news. Verse 11. Verse 12, actually. So now move on to verse 12. And it reads, And when we heard these things, both we and they of that place besought him not to go up to Jerusalem. So the him that they besought not to go to Jerusalem is Paul. So now they're going to tell Paul, listen, don't go to Jerusalem, because the man just prophesied his was going to happen. So now let's see what Paul said. Verse 13. Then Paul answered, what you mean? Nah, that's not what he said. But it's similar to what we're going to read here. When they came and told Paul, you got that, right? Yeah, when they told Paul, then Paul answered, "What mean ye to weep?" So Thomas say, "What do you mean? What you want me to cry or something?" Right? But I'll read it exactly as it's read in the scripture and give the sense. Then Paul answered, "What mean ye to weep and to break my heart? For I am ready not to be bound only, but also to die at Jerusalem for the name of the Lord Yahushua." So to put it in today's term, Paul answered, "What do you mean? What are you trying to do? Right? Am I supposed to cry? Or am I supposed to get tripped up? Right? In my mind, when you come and tell me this?" He said, let alone, I'm not only ready to be bound, but I'm ready to die. I'm ready to die. Also, at Jerusalem, for what purpose? For the Lord Yahushua. Same, we had other apostle who had to show similar attitude. Right here, that shows conviction. So there's nothing that can separate him right there. Right there. Not death. And the trial of men is everybody's afraid to die. Right? Everybody's afraid to die. For us who come to wake up, that death, Yahushua overcame. So now we have a chance. And then we welcome that death so long that we doing what's right. And when that day comes, we know we fight the good fight. So Paul right here, as he's fighting the fight, he's ready. And that scriptures pretty much tells you where his mind was. So let's go to Matthew, the 16th chapter and the 22nd verse. Following Yahushua comes with a price. But the price to pay compared to the reward, it's all worth it. If we understand. Matthew chapter 16 and verse 22. Yeah, it's worth it only if we understand it. But if we don't understand it, it doesn't make sense. So we got to understand the price and the reward. Matthew 16:22 reads, actually,
I got one.
You got it?
I got one. John.
In John, right?
Yeah.
You could pull that, then while I look for the one that I.
All right. So this is St. John chapter 18 and verse 10.
Okay, I got it. 25. It should be 25, not 22. 16:25. So you can read that, and then after that, I'll read
right.
St. John. St. John
18 and 10. So St. John 18 and 10, it says, "Then Simon Peter, having a sword, drew it and smote the high priest's servant and cut off his right ear. The servant's name was Malchus." Right? So this is when they came to apprehend Yahushua. Peter didn't want him to go. He took out his sword and chopped off the guy's ear. Right? Verse 11. "Then said Yahushua unto Peter, Put up thy sword into thy sheath. The cup which my Father hath given me, shall I not drink it?" Meaning, it was determined that he was going to have to go through and bear, sacrificing himself on the cross for the nation of Israel. "Shall I not drink the cup that's prepared for me?" Same thing with Paul. If he was to be bound and done, and whatever happened to him in Jerusalem, that was his cup that he had to drink. So that's why Paul was like, "What? Weep ye Why you weeping and why you crying and going over all this stuff? I don't care. If that's what's going to happen, that's what's going to happen. Right. I told y'all before, I was going to die for this. Right? So y'all can't stop me from going so that you can prevent me from not drinking my cup. Right. I got to go through it.
Go He understood his assignment. Just like Yahushua understood his assignment, that he had to come to die for the children of Israel. So you got to understand the job you were given by the Most High. Everybody has a job to do in this. That's why they call it a purpose, right? Everybody that got to understand your purpose for why you doing this. But the purpose can lead to fight until death. I read that in Matthew 16:24, and it reads, "Then said Yahushua unto his disciples, unto his students, if any man will come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me." We read that Paul had the same stance in chapter 20, right? He did not count his life dear unto him. So he denied himself and he picked up his cross and follow after Yahushua. Verse 25. "For whosoever will save his life shall lose it. And whosoever will lose his life for my sake shall find it." So here's the trade-off. All right, so go back to Acts 21. Now we at verse 14. "And when he would not be persuaded, right? And it says, and when he would not be persuaded, they could not change his mind. We ceased," they stopped, "saying, the will of God, the will of the Lord be done." Right? So they could not make him change his mind. So they stopped trying to convince him that he should not go up to Jerusalem. All right. So verse 14. Go to Matthew 26 and 39. Matthew 26, verse 39. And it reads, "And as they were eating, Yahushua took bread and blessed it and brake it and gave it to the disciple and said, take, eat. This is my body." Right, this is partaken with Yahushua. This go along with what we just read in Matthew 6:24 and 25. That was Matthew 26. Chapter 39. 26 and 39?
Yeah.
What's your take on that?
You said Matthew 26?
Verse
and 39?
39.
No, that's when he didn't want to go through with the will of God. He was going through his own will.
26 and 39?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I read Matthew 26 and verse 29, right?
But it's funny.
39. And he said, and he went a little further and fell on his face and prayed, saying, "Oh, my Father, if it be possible, let this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, not as I will, but as thou wilt." So now, when you read verse 14, right? In verse 14 in Acts, he said in verse 14 in Acts, "And when he would not be persuaded, we ceased, saying, the will of God or of the Lord be done." Right? So it's for the will of the Most High. be done. So they try to persuade him, but it's not their will, it's the will of the Most High that got to be done. The same way Yahushua understand that it's the will of the Most High that got to be done, regardless of how anybody feels.
Or how he felt.
Right, and regardless of how he felt or how anybody felt, he will go with the will of the Most High.
But he said he didn't want to die for these niggas. Didn't he say that?
No.
He didn't say that?
No.
No.
What did he say?
No.
No.
What did he say?
You said.
No, you said that.
You said.
You
He
said
like he didn't want to take this cup. No, what did he say?
No. He didn't say he didn't want to die.
If it be possible. It said if it be possible.
Take this cup away from me because I don't want to die for these niggas.
No.
Oh, what did he say?
He says it right there.
Oh,
What did he say? What did you read?
Well, he said, you know, if it's your will, I'm gonna go do it.
Right?
But can you take this cup away from me?
It's not what it right. It's okay, right. Can
I
you take
don't want to do this. I don't want to go up there and get all killed.
All right. That right. He was a bit away with that he was going to die.
Right.
Not the fact that he had to go and die for the nation.
But that's the whole idea. He was going to die for the people.
It was about, but it wasn't like he wasn't going to go die for the people. It was the fact that he had to go die, be crucified.
right.
It's not like, yo, take this cup. I don't want to die for these niggas. That's what you said. It had nothing to do with the people.
Right. The affliction and the pain.
It was what he had to go
The
through.
pain.
Well, that's that. He didn't want to go through.
Right, the death. But it wasn't nothing about the people.
It was all about the people. That's why he died.
No. You get what the way you saying it is not what it is. What you're saying, the way you came off was to say, I don't want to die for these niggas. That's like when you read the scripture with the hireling,
right?
With the shepherd. What was that at?
Right.
In Acts the 20th chapter.
Huh?
Acts the 20th chapter.
No, not Acts. It was in the gospel. When Yahushua gave the parable about the hireling and the shepherd.
Yeah.
The
Ireland ran off.
Right, the hireling ran off.
Like, man, I'm just here for the money.
Right, but the shepherd said, no,
he loved the sheep.
Yeah, he loved the sheep. So Yahushua is the shepherd. It ain't got that he don't love the sheep. It's the fact that the manner in which he was going to die, he felt a way behind it. So it was like, listen, the Most High, if you can allow me to not go through that, but still save the sheep, then
right.
Yeah, that's what I want to do.
Right.
It ain't like the way you said, like, I don't care nothing about them damn sheep.
No, he cared about them.
Okay, yeah, but the way what you said, listen, I don't want to die for these niggas.
Right.
When you use that terminology, when you use that vernacular, that's what it means and applies to a person who uses that terminology. Listen, I don't want to die for these niggas. When you say, listen, that means they less than. I don't want to deal with them. Why am I going to put my life on the line for them? I'd rather put my life on the line for them, not for them.
He just didn't want to be tortured. He wanted
to die,
but not like
yeah.
that.
When you think about your death, the difference with us is we don't know how we're going to die.
Right.
Right? But if someone told you, listen, this is how you're going to die, you're going to get shot or you're going to get stabbed or you're going to be suffering on a bed and everything else, that's going to torment you leading up to that time.
Right.
Because you know your time is going, or your fate is going to be sealed a certain way. Mm-hmm. So he knew, and not only was it just that he knew about that he was going to have to be crucified, who the heck is crucifying him? You don't know who crucified Yahushua? The Romans. And the Romans is the most hated nation of people of everybody. So he's like, listen, I got to go through this at the hands of these people. That's why it says even the one that pierced him is going to go feel that wrath when he come back. He's going to see me when I come back. Because it's who doing it. It's like, yo, I got to go and suffer in this manner, and I got to go suffer for thee.
Right.
And he helped create them.
Right.
When you think about it, he's the creator of all this. So he got to go and die for something that's not on my level. They're not as righteous as me, but I got to do this for my people.
Right.
Not because they niggas, but no, I'm going to go and do this for my people, but damn, I don't want to have to die. If the Most High can do what Abraham had with Isaac, when Isaac had to go offer up his son, right? The Most High stepped in with the angel and said, nah, you ain't got to do that. Right. Go get another thing over there. Right? If the Most High was able to do that for Abraham, it's like, all right, maybe the Most High can do that for Yahushua. No, this cup, you got to go drink that cup. Paul had to go drink that cup. right? And the Spirit is letting you know because there's certain individuals, there's certain men or women who have a high calling that they're going to be chosen to go do certain. That's why I said Yahushua was the only begotten. He was the only one fit for the job. It's not like say, okay, if we take Yahushua out, who else can we get? Nobody. Right. Nobody. That's like somebody saying, okay, we got this brother up in here and he's set up in the church, but he's not doing what he needs to do. We could take him out and bring somebody else in. Oh, he don't want to do it? Okay, we take him out and bring somebody else in. Now, there's certain people that was preordained to go through and do certain things in this ministry. Right. Nobody else. They were set up by the Most High.
Right, they were hired by the Most High from the predestined to get the job done.
They were going to have to do that.
Right. So, yeah, so the scripture we reference to is John 10 and 12, the hireling.
Right.
And also, if Yahushua would have that attitude, that would pretty much contradict when we read St. John 15 and 13. That says there's no greater love, right, to see that he laid down his life. Right. So that would just erase everything.
I don't want to die with these things. That wouldn't make sense.
That would make sense.
Say that.
Well, he said he don't want to die.
But they ain't say he didn't want to die for these niggas. You just threw that piece in there. That ain't got nothing to do with that.
The whole idea of him dying, he was dying for the niggas.
No, but it's not. It's like that's like saying you got a family and you got your son, right? And they about to kill your son, but you say, "Don't take him, take me." Right? Take me. But now your son is gone. They let him go free. Now they got you sitting up in the chair, tied to the chair, and they say, oh, we're going to slice. We ain't going to let you die slow. Yeah. We're going to slice you with 1,000 cuts. You're going to feel this. Right. We're going to be punching in the ring. You're like, oh, man, I don't want to have to go through this torture.
Bring him back.
Is there not a way?
That's wicked as hell to say something like that. That's wicked as hell to think like that.
Man, I'm sure you will say, you saved my son, but is there another way we can do this without my son has to die?
But you don't want to put your son in that. You talking about something, go bring my son back. Let him go through that.
All right. So let's go back
that's a bugged out spirit there, brother.
All right, let's go back to Acts.
You need to pray on Yahushua and increase your faith, bro. That's what you need to do. Pray Yahushua and increase your faith.
All right, so let's go back to the book of Acts. And that's 14. When he would not be persuaded, we see saying, the will of the Lord be done.
Right. And because of this, he wasn't the only one. You had a few men who hazarded their life for the people.
Right.
Right? Who didn't put fear or let anything else come in between them and their people. Right. So it's stories like this, like it says in Romans 15 and 4, things written aforetime was written for our learning. That knows, like, if you in this situation, if you in this position, this is the mindset that you gotta have. Not the adverse to be like the hireling and be like, man, forget these niggas. I'm out of here. Right. They're on their own. I ain't gonna. Now you're gonna have a worse name. Right? You're going to have a worse name because you're a traitor to your people, right? You ain't going to have no honor. When all Israel is, you ain't going to have that honor. You're going to be looked at like, yeah, he's the one that ran out. Him? Yeah, he ran out of people. What's going on with that? Like, yeah. Then they gonna be calling him, and what's going on with that nigga right there? Nah, listen, you want to stand up like a king, like a prince, and say, you know what? I'm going to lay down my life like Yahushua did, like Paul did, like this brother did, like that brother did. The beauty of it is, like, money, some of us may not be here right now.
Right.
Some of us may not have that spirit, that fortitude to say that you would do that in this situation. You may still have that worldly fear. Increase your faith, increase your strength, and give you the will. I'll put a different spirit in you to overcome those things. That's what happened with Yahushua. Right. When you read it, where Yahushua was big, he was going through things. And what happened?
All right, so we back online. All right, so let's go back to verse 15 in Acts. And after those days, we took up your okay, it says after those days, we took up our carriages and went up to Jerusalem. So after they spent a few days, they took their belongings and head to Jerusalem. Verse 16, there went with us also certain of the disciples of Caesarea, and brought with them one Nisan in Cyprus, an old disciple with whom we should lodge. So they decided that it's necessary, it's convenient to stay with that disciple, Cyprus. Right? It was one of the old-time friend and disciples of Yahushua. 17. And when we were come to Jerusalem, the brethren receive us gladly. So the brethren there received them gladly, friends of long date. Right? It says in 18. And the day following, Paul went in with us unto James, and all the elders were present. Verse 19. And when he had saluted them, he declared particularly what thing the Most High had wrought among the Gentile by his ministry. So now they're gonna they start to tell Paul what happened and what things the Most High had wrought the Gentiles by his ministry. So now, in verse 19, 1 second. See if I miss anything as far as link up. Okay, so that's fine. All right, so now, in verse 19, and when he had saluted them, he declared particularly what things the Most High had wrought among the Gentiles by his ministry. Verse 20, and when they heard it, they glorified the Lord and said unto him, thou seest, brother, how many thousands of Jews there are which believe, and they are all zealous of the law, and they are informed of thee, that thou teachest all these Jews which are among the Gentiles, to forsake Moses, saying that they ought not to circumcise their children, neither to walk after the customs. So now they tell Paul, listen, you see all these people that we've been teaching the scriptures, they following the scriptures. So now we heard stories about, you going around and teaching people and teaching them they ain't got to keep the laws of Moses anymore, and you don't have to keep the laws, certain laws anymore. What is this about? If anything, you're gonna have an opportunity to clear yourself right there and there. So remember, Paul was taking a vow, the Nazarite vow. Now they're gonna put him to the test, so that in front of everybody he has a chance to clear himself. We have verse 19, then verse 20. All right, so they're gonna give him the opportunity to clear himself, to make sure that he clear all the rumors that was going around about him. All right, Kahan Samad.
Right. So this is a precept for verse 19,
verse 19
and 20, when it talks about God have wrought among the Gentiles by his ministry, knowing that he was talking about the Jews.
Gun.
But now I'm going to read this in Acts 26.
Acts 26.
Acts 26, verses 14 to 18. Acts 26, chapter 26, verses 14 to 18. It says, and when we were all fallen to the earth, so this is Paul recounting his experience on the road to Damascus, how Yahushua met him on the way. He's now telling the story to another different group, right? Mm-hmm. It says, and when we were all fallen to the earth, I heard a voice speaking unto me and saying in the Hebrew tongue, Saul, Saul, why persecutest thou me? It is hard for thee to kick against the pricks. And I said, who art thou, Lord? And he said, I am Yahushua, whom thou persecutest. But rise and stand upon thy feet, for I have appeared unto thee for this purpose, to make thee a minister and a witness, both of these things which thou hast seen, and of those things in the which I will appear unto thee, right? So now as Yahushua is dealing with Paul, he's now expounding on what purpose he's there for and what things he's about to show him then and in the future of what he was going to have to do and bear. Verse 17, delivering thee from the people and from the Gentiles, unto whom now I send thee. So it says delivering you from the people and the Gentiles. So now when you look at it, when he went out to go teach, he had to encounter and deal with his own people that was in Jerusalem or who knew that they was Jews, and he had to deal with those who was Gentiles, which was Israelites in a Gentile state of mind. Now it says this, unto whom now I send thee. What did the Yahushua send them for? To open their eyes and to turn them from darkness to light, and from the power of Satan unto God, that they may receive forgiveness of sins, Acts 5:29, 31, and inheritance among them which are sanctified by faith that is in me. So when Yahushua first said that, when we jump back to Acts, the 9th chapter, it really didn't give clear understanding if you were reading it in chronological order, that that's Yahushua's whole purpose, to go into the Jews that was amongst the Gentiles. You would have thought that, oh yeah, Paul is going to the Gentiles. But no, the purpose that Yahushua sent them was not expounded like this in Acts 26, right, back in Acts 9. He didn't go into the forgiveness of sins and inheritance among those. He didn't go into that. He just told them that he was going to send them amongst the Gentiles. Right. But now it's given more further clarity after everything that has transpired. Now we know what the purpose of Yahushua for Paul was. Right. That he now was going to send them to his people in general, whether they knew that they was Israelites or didn't know that they was Israelites. Paul had to expound Yahushua's full intent to them as well.
Go on. And you have a question, right, Gabat?
Yeah.
What's the question?
Were they sincerely asking him that he not teach the law, or was they lying on him right then and there?
Here's what happened. If you read, if you get the context, when he met with them, he saluted them, and then he began to tell them in details. Paul began to tell the elders in details the work that he has been doing.
Right.
And how the people were zealous and they were converted to following Christ. So they was like, okay, all praise due to the Most High, by Hashem Yahushai. We hear you. Right? So now they're going to tell them, so you see how many people believe in Christ? But what we're hearing is that people are going, what we're hearing is that people saying, you're telling them not to circumcise, not to follow the law of Moses and their custom. So that's pretty much what they telling Paul they're hearing.
So they were sincere in saying that.
They sincere.
Lying on him right then.
No, they're not lying on him.
I'm going to read this in Acts chapter 13, right? Because remember, Paul went out in different places to teach. So the same things that Yahushua had to go through. Remember when Yahushua went out to teach, what happened? Right? They didn't see Yahushua as a savior. So they was moved with envy and all different kind of things to spread these blasphemous things about Yahushua. They didn't understand his words and what he was teaching, and they didn't have the spirit for them to even receive it. So they made and conjured up all these lies and things about Yahushua, right? So this is Acts chapter 13 and 44. It says, and the next Sabbath day came almost the whole city together to hear the word of God. But when the Jews saw the multitudes, they were filled with envy and spake against those things which were spoken by Paul, contradicting and blaspheming, right? So here you got Yahushua had gone through the same things. Now here it is, Paul is going in the spirit of Yahushua to teach, and you got the same thing happening. You got men who were envious of Paul, like they was envious Yahushua, now contradicting or going against what Paul is stating, the same way they went against what Yahushua stated, and then start speaking against them, and then start blaspheming against them. So now they're in these different areas. So now rumor or word travels. So they go back and is telling these men, yo, this is what we seeing Paul doing. Paul out here rolling with these doggone heathens, man. He rolling with these heathens. He allowing these heathens to come and do such and such. Yeah. Now, why would they be opposed to that if they Israelites? Right? If they're Israelites, why would they be upset that Paul is rolling with Israelites who in the Gentile state of mind? Because they didn't roll with them. Right? They separated themselves from those brothers. They separated from themselves from anyone who was not following the tradition as they saw it, the tradition of our forefathers. So if you was out there worshiping Diana, you was cut off. You had no rights to the inheritance. You couldn't come back, right? That was their mentality. So now when Paul going out here and he's going into these different places and going and teaching, and the people seeing all these people coming out, they're like, yo, the heck is this? Right? This man speaking about you coming back to the commandments. Oh, nah. So they contradicted what he was saying. Same thing that we do right now.
So you know what? But they act like they was asking him questions, but they were really lying on him.
No, actually not them. Those set of people that in question right now, those are they honestly asking him. So that's why as we read on in the previous verse, they're gonna ask him to do certain things so that he can clear himself from the rumors that the other people that don't like him, that's jealous of him, is bringing accusation they bringing upon him.
Right. So there's rumors that's going to be brought out by Jews back to the people, and now you got Jews who was a part of the apostleship who now rolling with Paul, who back. That's who he came back to. Now he's back there in Jerusalem, and they are part of the apostleship. But some of them don't know what Paul's doing. That's why he had to come and say and expound on what he did. And then they're like, oh, see, brother, see how many Jews there are amongst the Gentiles that Paul don't reach? Right. Brother's like, oh, okay. Oh, all right. I'm getting a little bit more clear as to, what his purpose is. But to even make it more clear, we about to read what they're going to want Paul to do. Right. Because they're trying to clear up a lot of rumors that's been going on and been spread.
Okay, so they were sincere.
Right, so Paul is giving him the report of his ministry, what he has been doing to those that rolling with him. And then now we're going to read on and moving forward. All right, so go back to Acts. Acts, the 21st chapter. And what verse we on? 21. 21. All right, Acts 21 and 21. And they are informed of thee, that thou teachest all the Jews which are among the Gentiles to forsake Moses, saying that they ought not to circumcise their children, neither to walk after the customs. What is it thereof? So now they ask him a question. So what is the truth now? We hear this, but what is the truth now? What's your version of the story? Here's what happened. It says, the multitude must need come together, for they will hear that thou art come. So they said, you know what? The people are going to come together because they know that you're around. You're in town. So the people are going to come around to see what the deal is. Right? So they preparing him.
It's a precept for verse 21 when it talks about saying that they ought not to circumcise their children, neither to walk after their customs. So this is what now came back about circumcision. So I'm going to read this in Galatians chapter 5. Galatians chapter 5 and verse 2. It's the same thing that happened with Yahushua. When Yahushua was teaching, everybody didn't fully understand what he was saying, right? They fully didn't digest his words. Sometimes it was hard for some people to understand what he was getting at, right? So now it says this in Galatians chapter 5 and verse 2. It says, behold, I, Paul, say unto you, that if you be circumcised, Christ shall profit you nothing. For I testify again to every man that is circumcised, that he is a debtor to do the whole law. So now this is what Christ is writing in the law, in the letter to the Galatians as it pertains to circumcision. So someone was like, yo, Paul's saying that, yo, we get circumcised, we jacked up, we shouldn't be keeping circumcision, right? This is what they're saying.
They misunderstood.
They're misunderstanding what Paul is saying. Verse 4, it says, Christ is become of no effect unto you, whosoever of you are justified by the law, you are fallen from grace. It wasn't the fact of the actual circumcision. It was the fact that men were justifying themselves because they just got circumcised, right? And not the circumcision of the heart. They were just going it through the flesh and say, okay, yeah, I did this, I did that, and I'm good. I'm justified. No one can come say nothing to me. So he said, listen, if you think that way, then Christ is of no profit to you. Him coming means nothing. So then he never needed to come for you if you still want to be justified by the law. Verse 5. For we, through the Spirit, wait for the hope of righteousness by faith, right? Because there was more to come than just the commandments. Yahushua gave us more insight about it. It says, for in Jesus Christ, neither circumcision availeth anything, nor uncircumcision, but faith which worketh by love. So now here it is. You got circumcision and then you got uncircumcision. So now this is dealing with two mentalities of people. You got some who was following the law and said, I got to get circumcised. And then you got others who was not circumcised by birth through birth because they were following the customs of the world. So now neither one of them don't mean anything as much as if you follow the faith of the Most High through Yahushua, right? Now, one more. This is Colossians chapter 2. Colossians chapter 2 and verse 9. Colossians 2 and 9. It says, for in him dwelleth all the fullness of the Godhead bodily, talking about Yahushua, right? So he encompasses the Most High's essence in the body, right? It says, and ye are complete in him, which is the head of all principality and power. If we follow his will, we are complete and one with the Godhead, which is Yahushua. Now check this out. It says, in whom also ye are circumcised. How are they circumcised? With the circumcision made without hands, and putting off the body of the sins of the flesh by the circumcision of Christ. So if you're saying, listen, all I needed to do was just get circumcised in my foreskin, and I'm justified by that, oh, then you lost. You not. There's not no profit to you. You didn't get it. You still going to be a part of that old way of thinking, and this is going to not for you. Or if you are in uncircumcision and you still out there worshiping and praising Diana, and you thinking I ain't got to follow her, I ain't got to get circumcised. I'm praising Zeus, so I'm praising Apollos, right? Then this ain't for you. But if both of you, anybody, comes and get the circumcision made without hands, then you are complete in the Godhead. Then you are following according to faith.
Right.
But now when the word and the report came back to Jerusalem, they was like, yo, Paul out there saying you ain't got to get circumcised. You know how Jacob is. You know how Israel is. We love to run with gossip. Paul out there saying we ain't got to get circumcised. They just didn't fully understand what Paul was talking about.
Right.
That was the key.
And the key is, if we want to be more, make it simple, you got to lump Christ first with the law. That's the only way. You cannot detach Christ from the law, or the law from Christ. So read John, John 1 and 3, right? John and 3, nothing was created without Christ. So we cannot say the law, we're going to keep the law in not understanding Christ. It's not going to work. You got to put them both together, right? Because Christ is the law, right? So, and also write down Romans, the 10th chapter and the 4th verse. I'll read that one. Christ is the law. So Paul would never say that the law is done away with or not to keep the law, but he was trying to make them understand Christ with the law, which they didn't understand. Romans, the 10th chapter and the 4th verse reads, "For Christ is the end of the law, for righteousness to everyone that believeth." For Christ is the end of the law, for righteousness to everyone that believeth. So Paul understands the disconnect that the people have with Christ by championing the law, but not understanding Christ, thinking everything they're doing is because of the law. But Christ is the law. So you have to always make sure that Christ is the law. So if you're going to follow the law, you cannot do it without Christ. So let's go back to Acts. The 21st chapter. 22nd verse. What is thereof? The multitude must need come together, for they will hear that thou art come. Verse 23. Do therefore this that we say to thee, we have 4 men which have a vow on them. Them take and purify thyself with them. This is the scenario that they lay out for Paul to do, so that he's going to justify that whatever they saying was false. Say there's 4 men that's going to vow a vow. You're going to do the vow with them so that the people can see what they talking about is proof that it's a lie, that the other people that was bringing rumors about it. I'll read it again, verse 23. Do therefore this that we say to thee, we have, when it says do therefore this that we say to thee, is meaning do what we're going to tell you. Okay, do his what we're going to tell you, just do it. It said, we have 4 men which have a vow on them, them take and purify thyself with them, and be at charges with them, meaning you pay for the expenses, right, of what they're gonna take care, right? It says that they may shave their heads. The money that they got, it's just like you go to a barbershop, you gotta pay money. So what you're gonna do, you're gonna make sure you take the charges and take care of that.
This is not money. This is when you do the Nazarite vow, there's certain provisions of things that you now have to do.
Right.
So when you're a Nazarite, you can't drink anything that has wine, grapes, strong drink. You got to separate yourself from that. You got to separate yourself from cutting or doing anything to your hair.
Right.
And then you got to separate yourself from anything that's unclean. So you pretty much is isolating yourself. Even if a family member, your mother, your father, your brother died, you can't go to the funeral because you've now taken a vow for a specific charge. So you under that charge.
Right.
Not like you got to go and pay somebody.
Right.
This is just what you now have to follow according to that order. And then after that, then you go and you do the sacrifice at the end of it.
Right. So that's the charges. It's the end. Like,
but there's no money.
Right. There's no
money. That's why when you do the Nazarite vow, you got to go offer up a sacrifice.
Well, what they're saying is,
it's like,
if I understand it correctly, what they're saying is they're trying to clear him of these rumors.
Correct.
So they're going to say something in the law, and he's going to abide by what they said as long as it has something to do with the law. And then the people will know that he didn't say those rumors, that he's for the law.
Right, because he's doing the vow. If he wasn't about the law, then he would not be going and doing a Nazarite vow, which is something that's not like a light thing. Like that's when you really separate yourself according to the law and dedicating yourself to the Most High for a specific purpose, like an oath that you've done. So you now go with these men who've already said they're about to do this vow. You go with them and y'all enter into this vow, be at charge with them, and then afterwards you come back so that the people can see that, yeah, Paul is under law, right? As opposed to somebody who's like New Testament-ish. It's like, yo, we don't deal with the old law. We don't deal with the commandments like that. We ain't got to do that stuff. That was for, them in the past. We ain't got to worry about that. And then if they'd have heard Paul say that, they'd be like, oh, see, he don't deal with the commandments. You talking like that? Oh, man, they was right what they were saying.
But is this the Nazarite vow they was taking?
Right. Exactly. Because when you read Numbers, the 6th chapter, when you completed your vow, you had to shave your head.
I thought this at the beginning.
At the end.
I mean,
at the end.
You make a vow and you shave
No,
your head.
at the end, number 6. When it's complete, because remember the vow says no razor can come to your head while you're under the vow. Once the vow is done, then you shave your head bald.
What is the vow?
Whatever, like to say I'm going to separate from wine, strong drink, so on. I'm not going to put any razor to my head like Samson, and I'm not going to come around anything unclean. Anything, no woman. I'm not going to come to near my wife. I'm not going to be around my family. I'm not going to be around anybody. I don't know any. You could be unclean for all I know. You could be. So I'm going to really separate myself from the people for whatever this purpose is that you say I'm going to separate myself for. That's like a fast. You may say, I'm going to fast. What you going to fast for is different from what he going to fast for. But when you're doing the fast, you ain't going to eat. You ain't going to drink. You ain't going to do none of those things for the fast. But the purpose of your fast may be different from his fast. Maybe different from my fast. I'm saying I got health issues. So I'm going to go pray to the Most High and fast so that he can come heal me. Or I'm trying to gain more wisdom. I've been trying to gain it, and maybe I got to humble myself and show the Most High. So I'm a fast by doing this charge that the Lord said this is what a fast is, but my purpose is different from what your purpose is. That's why, so when you say I'm going to take a Nazarite vow, the Nazarite vow is different from a fast. The Nazarite vow says, I'm not going to eat any or drink anything that has this. I ain't going to have this touch my head. And I ain't going to come around anything that's unclean for a period of time, whether it's 7 days, 2 weeks, 21 days, a month, whatever it is. And you got to stick to it. Once you make that vow, you got to stick to it for that period of time. And then once it's over, then you shave your head.
Right.
I remember one of the brothers at the other camp, when I seen him online, he used to have braids. And then I seen him, he had a bald head. I was like, yo, the heck? But then I was like, oh, he must have taken a vow. And then I seen him, he was commenting on somebody. He's like, yeah, y'all, comment on my body. I did a vow. I ain't going off. I did a Nazarite vow. If you know that, go read number 6. And that's what it was about. I was like, oh, okay. Cool.
So in 23, right? I mean, what I was seeing in this is not so much they pay so much, or there's anything that has to do with money significant. It's like at the end when they gotta shave, Paul gotta be responsible for that shaving for wherever they gotta go, right, to get the head shaved. Paul will be responsible for that for the shaving. That's what I see in where it says with them and be right at the end of the vow. Everybody got to shave their head.
He's just responsible for doing the vow.
Right, he's gonna do the vow with them, right? But at the end, they all gonna shave their head together, right. And then Paul will take care of that.
What do you mean?
I don't know if that he has to be the one to shave it, but
no, he's not shaved. He's not gonna get paid. Whoever's gonna, just like whoever's gonna shave their head, they gotta get paid. So he's gonna be.
What if you shave your own head?
Huh?
What if you shave your own head?
But I mean, from what I'm here right here, from what I see right here, where it says, then take the purification thyself, right? That has nothing to do with paying. So he's just taking the purification with them, right? And it says, and be at charges with them that they may have shaved their heads. That's the part right here. Be at charges with them that they may shave their heads.
I think just to make sure that they shave their heads.
No, I mean they're gonna make sure they're gonna shave their head because that's part of the vow. You know, that's part of the system of taking a vow. So now, I mean, it's not significant. It's not significant, but what I'm saying is like he's responsible when they're gonna shave their head. Then you know whoever's gonna do it, they pay him and then they shave their head. So everybody can see in the open that everything is being done, and Paul is clear of everything. That's the main part. They want to see him do the vow, and so that he can be clear of him not keeping the law, right? As there have been rumors about him that he's telling people not to keep the law of Moses. All right, so let's move on. And it says, let me finish up that part. It says, know that those things whereof they were informed concerning thee are nothing, but that thou thyself also walkest orderly and keepest the law. That was pretty much the whole thing. So you're gonna do it so that everybody can see that you are in harmonious, right, with the law that you've been there's been rumors about you. Verse 25. Now it says, as touching the Gentiles which believe, we have written and conclude that they observe no such thing, save only, right? Save only that they keep themselves from things offered to idol, and from blood, and from strangle, and from fornication. That's we speaking about the Gentiles right here.
Gentiles?
Mm-hmm. No, this is Israel.
Israel
and Gentiles state of mind, because they was coming out of. Remember, they was amongst the nations, and these were the main things.
Right.
That they was caught up in.
Right. Kind of like what you said last night. The law is not pertaining to everybody, right? Like Israel, it's not everybody that's gonna have to do certain things. Certain things is not pertaining to them. So that
But yeah, this was not saying that they didn't have to keep no other law. This was like I remember my brother said it before. It's like when somebody come into the school. Right? There's a lot of laws and commandments that's in the Bible. Right? But when a person comes in, what you may see that may be the major problem or the major thing that they're dealing with, if they was dealing with Islam or if they was dealing with Christianity, you'd be like, listen, you got to make sure you know how to keep the Sabbath day.
Right.
Because you was doing it on Sunday.
Right.
Sabbath day, you got to make sure Friday, sundown, you make sure that you stop doing all your pleasures and stop cooking and doing all this other stuff.
Right.
Whereas, there's other things that they got to do, but this is something you got to break out of. So the fornication, the Greeks and the Romans, that was their thing. All of their holidays had to deal with all different types of revelings and fornication and women and having all kind of orgies.
Right.
That was their thing of having an orgy.
Who was this?
The Greeks and the Romans.
Okay.
Even when you go back to even some of the Babylonian customs had it where you would go to a temple and then go and offer, the women would go and offer themselves up as sex objects to go and sleep with these other men in honor of the god.
Right.
You read that in Baruch. So this was something you got to say, listen, y'all got to cut that fornication out. Y'all got to cut this idolatry out. Stop with this Diana and this Zeus and this. Cut all that stuff out. This is the main thing that y'all got to deal with. And that's what the brother said. Okay, this is cool for them to lay down upon them. They got to follow that.
Go ahead. Right, Paul had to deal with a lot of that. What you just bringing out about offering themselves to idols. And it gets to a point where in one of the city that Paul visited, there was a lot of idolatry and people offering themselves to the gods right on the altar by sleeping, with each other. Homosexuality and all that stuff was going on over there back then. So verse 26. Then Paul took the men, and the next day, purifying himself with them, entered into the temple to signify the accomplishment to the days of purification. Until that, an offering should be offered for every one of them. Verse 27. And when the 7th days were almost ended, the Jews which were of Asia, when they saw him in the temple, stirred up all the people and laid hands on him. So now here come those who were in opposition with him.
After he proved himself.
And
they seen the people coming to him because they realized he was teaching the truth. Now they still starting something.
Right.
No. But you got to realize what's happening, because he came back and he did what he did. So this says, and when the 7 days were almost ended, the Jews which were of Asia, that I just read about back in Acts, Acts 13 and 45, when it says the Jews which saw the multitudes were filled with envy against Paul, and they spoke blasphemous words and different things against them. Now these Jews are the ones that's coming back to Jerusalem. And then it happens that they come back at the end of his purification, at the end of his Nazarite vow. 7 days have ended, and they come and they see Paul in the temple. Now they wasn't privy to this whole conversation of what Paul.
Right, they weren't there, yeah.
They wasn't there. Now they just coming back like, yo, remember that brother again, and he in the temple?
Right.
Yo, this is, man. Now they coming and rousing up the people to get now Paul out of the temple, because they see him as blasphemous. They see him as opposite of what he really is. Right. And that's what's going on now.
Right, because when they making stuff about Paul, they don't really care what Paul is doing, because their mind is already made up. Right? They say, because they jealous of Paul for what Paul is teaching. It's not even about Paul doing righteousness at that point. So they just looking for something to get Paul on. Just going to... Right, so let's go to 1 Corinthians chapter 9 and verse 20. 1 Corinthians chapter 9 and verse 20. We're going to see how the versatility of Paul, where he might have been, Paul can be easily mistaken if you don't understand what he's doing. First Corinthians 9 and 20 reads, and unto the Jews I became as a Jew, that I might gain the Jews. To them that are under the law, and as under the law, that I might gain them that are under the law. Right? To them that are without law, as without law, being not without law to God, but under the law of Christ, that I might gain them that are without law. So Paul was very versatile. Whenever he goes to a town, he don't sin, but he pretty much be wise as a serpent and harmless as a dove. He fit right in just so that he can reach those that he's trying to teach. So some people might be looking at, hey, listen, I see him dealing with the Gentiles over there. But what was he doing? You can't just be passing by and see them and accompany them, but you don't know the whole story. Then rumors can start right there in there, because they're not involved. They just see him. They're looking for something. But him, his manner of teaching it to make sure that he reached the outmost our people, he would just go in, right, with our people, regardless of their state of mind, and reach them so that he can gain them for Yahushua's sake. Back to Acts. chapter 21, and now we at verse 28. Yeah, 28. I'll read 28 again. Crying out, men of Israel, help this. Help. This is the man that teacheth all men everywhere against the people. In the law, in this place. And further brought Greeks also into the temple and have polluted this holy place. Verse 29. For they had been before with him in the city Tryphamus, and Ephesians, whom they suppose, not even facts, they suppose that Paul had brought into the temple. Verse 30. And all the city was moved, and the people ran together, and they took Paul and drew him. So the people that he brought to the temple, they think it was Greek, but they actually Jews in Gentile state of mind. But because they, overzealous about, Paul teaching and trying to get him, they think that he was dealing with, the Gentiles and bring Gentiles into the temple.
I don't think they thought they was Greeks. Because the Greeks was white. They just thought they was uncircumcised Jews. And
Right.
That's why they weren't allowed to go in the temple.
Correct. Correct. Go on, Samak.
Right, I'm gonna read this. This is Ephesians chapter 2.
Ephesians chapter 2.
Ephesians chapter 2 and verse 11.
And
Ephesians chapter 2 and 11.
before you go on, if someone did not hear, the brother just said that he did not bring Jews into the temple. He did not bring, Greeks into the temple. Because if you look at it, the Greeks, they're so-called white people, right? But the Jews that are in Gentile state of mind, uncircumcised,
That's why they said the temple
was polluted.
right.
All right? Go on, Samak.
Ephesians 2 and 11. It says, wherefore remember that ye being in time past Gentiles in the flesh, who are called uncircumcision by that which is called the circumcision in the flesh made by hands.
Correct.
So now these men who was Israelites was in time past Gentiles, heathen.
Right.
And they was called uncircumcision. By whom? Those brothers who were still doing the circumcision according to the law, who knew they was Gentile. That they was Jews. So they was calling these the uncircumcised brothers, man. These are brothers out there following out on other stuff, right? Now, because they classified them as that, watch this, verse 12. That at that time you were without Christ, being aliens from the commonwealth of Israel and strangers from the covenants of promise, having no hope and without God in the world. So now on a spiritual level, that's how they were. That's how everybody is that don't have Christ.
Right.
But on a carnal level, you had the men who was called the circumcision, Jews that was in Judea or throughout Asia Minor. They looked at these men as the uncircumcision. Right. They looked at them as heathen. Now, if you are heathen, you got no rights to any of the promises. Right. You cast it out. You can't come and get none of this. Right. So now when they see him roll these men throughout the city, right? They think that now thinking these men going in and out of the in and out of
I put it.
Say again?
I put it.
I ain't know. Well, they see him Paul going in and out of the city. No, they suppose that he went in the temple. But they were just seeing him going around. Remember when we went back in Acts 20 and 4. Acts 20 and 4 says, and there accompanied him into Asia, of Berea and of the Thessalonians.
Arasticus and Secundus and Gaius of Derbe and Timotheus and of Asia, Tychus and Tryphaemus.
This is the picture we just read now in Acts 21 and 21, right? It was 21 and
30, 29.
Tryphaemus again.
So they said,
listen, we're seeing that with the brothers from Tryphaemus.
I bet
he went to the temple. Remember,
they all blaspheme and contradict what Paul is saying because they were genius men. They were not men that had the spirit in them. So this is what now he has to defend. When they Paul in the temple, they come with a whole entourage. Like, yo, this is that brother right here. And they come rush the show, right? They come rush everything. Go and bring him out of the temple after he just finished doing that.
Right.
Right? That's messed up.
All right. So let's go back to Acts, the 20th chapter. Now we are verse 20. Where we at? I think we had 30. Verse 30. And all the city was moved, and the people ran together, and they took Paul and drew him out of the temple. And forthwith the door was shut. As they went about to kill him, tidings came unto the chief captain. So the news came to the chief captain of the band that all Jerusalem was in an uproar. Verse 32, who immediately took soldiers and centurions and ran down unto them. And when they saw the chief captain and the soldiers, they left beating of Paul. Verse 33, then the chief captain came near and took him and commanded him to be bound with 2 chains, and demanded who he was and what he had done. And some cried one thing, some another among the multitude. And when he could not know the certainty for the tumult, he commanded him to be carried unto the castle. So he was trying to make sense of what the captain was trying to make sense of everything that was going on, because one is yelling one thing and another group is yelling another. So he could not really make a good judgment call on what's going on. So he ordered to take Paul and carry Paul to the castle so he can figure the matter out. Verse 35. And when he came up on the stairs, so it was that he was born of the soldiers for the violence of the people. Verse 36. For the multitude of the people follow after crying, away with him. And as Paul was to be led into the castle, he said unto the chief captain, may I speak unto thee?
So I don't know if you brought it up because I was checking something out, but going back into 33, verse 33, when it says, and he was bound with 2 chains,
right?
That was the prophecy being fulfilled
by Agabus that we just read about back in verse 10, right? Agabus said that whoever curses is going to be bound in Jerusalem where he went.
That's what this got fulfilled, that he was now bound.
First is
that
they was about
to kill him.
Right?
So when they grabbed him out of the temple and the doors were shut,
and they took him out,
they was about to kill him.
No, he had to carry for him.
Right. But before they even got to that, they was beating on him. They was about to kill him. Right. So when the captain of the host and other men came to get him, he couldn't even walk. They had to bear him up.
Right.
That's what he said. They had the soldiers had to guard him. That's like, yo, you in the mob. Somebody kicking you, and they doing it. You're like, oh, you're on the ground, and they're like, yo, get that kill him. So they go and grab him up, and then they carry him up to where he go. Can I say something for a minute? Now, showing you that even in the midst of this situation he's going through, even in the midst of him going through physical abuse, he's still remembering what he was doing. He could have said, you know what, man? Yeah, take me in there. Let me just, give me away from this. Let me just go and just relax for about a week or something, right? He's like, nah. As they go, can I say something to you? Because I want to take this opportunity to get all this out.
right? So he maximized on the opportunity even after he just got himself beat almost to death. That's happy because now when we're talking about, no, he couldn't. No, he didn't try to save himself. They went to go save him because that's what it says back in verse 31. And as they went about to kill him, tidings came into the captain of the band that all Jerusalem was in the uproar. So they're like, what's the problem going on? So he like, wait. Then it says, who immediately took soldiers and centurions and ran down unto them. So when they ran up, and when they saw the chief captain and the soldiers, they left all. So when the cops came, everybody stopped. Everybody started running, which we see all the time. Right? Everybody jumping, and they're like, yo, the cops coming. And everybody started running out. When they broke out, they all buddy, you high? Exactly. Right? So that's what the captain came here and commanded him to be bound with chains and the better who he was and what he had done. So this is funny because he just got out of his house in the bar. They don't know what happened. They was the
he must have did something for him. People
exactly. You know how they get innocent until proven guilty. You know what?
It's guilty until proven innocent. That's what Paul was just. He was guilty, and then they said, "We find out what he did." Right, and then.
And not that, because they gave him, they was going to take him through their own hands with them, but they gave him to find out what did he do, who did he do to make him go mad with him. They gave him.
Right, but still in the same thing, because sometimes when Esau goes through that, Esau ain't treated like how we treated it. Esau don't go through the same until proven innocent. Esau always gets you're innocent until proven guilty at but here it is. So Paul, they were going to say, well, if anybody behind, he had that wrong. He didn't do nothing wrong. Right? It was these men that came in and read about his name and then come out and just start beating them. Right?
So as they were getting Paul, and Paul was getting ready to get into the precinct, right? He's take him to the precinct. Right? It says, as Paul was to be led into the castle, he said unto the chief captain, and Paul see that they taking him to the precinct. He said, may I speak unto thee? Who said, can thou speak Greeks? Right? Because right that in there, right? They think Paul was, we're going to read it in 38. So are not thou that Egyptian, which before these days made us an uproar and led us out into the wilderness, 4,000 men that were murderers. So now they pretty much trying to, bring a Paul rap sheet, right?
What were they talking about there?
Right.
Say something before.
This verse here, kind of sheds light into a couple different things. One, going into the description of Paul, right? Because it says, art not thou that Egyptian,
yeah.
Right? And so the same way we deal with Moses, when we said Moses grew up as an Egyptian, and when you look at all the ancient artifacts of the ancient Egyptians, they was dark-skinned people. So now Moses passed for an Egyptian.
He had to be a dark-skinned individual, right? So now in the same context, if Paul now apprehended, is now being mistaken for an Egyptian that caused for a few days, whatever it was ago, then that Paul must have also been a dark-skinned man or a man of color, not a person who Esau today. Right? So when you see the scripture here, the ancient Egyptians even back then have what it looked like. So we can say, oh, Paul and all these apostles looking one way, but even back then, during this time, we knew what the Egyptians were like, and then Paul was being mistaken for Egyptians. He would have had to have looked just like them, right? But he's now speaking on Paul speaking to him in Greek because he's like, hold on, You in the, I thought you was in the church. You know, you got a lot of I don't even speak the language. How you speaking in Greek? I thought you had it.
But
He was mistaken for someone else.
But like you said, this was ancient Egypt. So, you know, what was it? Ptolemaic already took over Rome. It was under Roman guard then. So they made things they call about it.
You know, the Egyptians don't change their color. We don't change our color. No, you may change your name. A person may come and take your identity, just like these people our identity and classify themselves as us. So then, just like one act, how did the Jews leave black and come back white? It don't add up. Because we always used to see a people of color, not a people of red or pale skin. So that's what this person now also plays a part. And they say, hey, we can now get Paul in the same context as saying they can get Moses. Moses passed for an Egyptian. He grew up, he was in line. Paul passed for an Egyptian here. So he had a man of color, and Paul was a man of color, Moses was a man of color, Christ was a man of color, and the Jews, the Israelites are people of color. Why y'all just like, how come we don't understand what we see in the record? That's the key behind it. But yeah, this captain was kind of confused because Paul was able to speak the language. And now Paul got to explain why he was able to speak the language. The man was just like, you look at somebody like, I don't know much. He ain't got no education. He ain't been nowhere. He ain't no world traveler. You know, you just assume the worst about him. But Paul was the person that had to, yeah, he was the person that had to fuck with him.
Was it 39?
Come on, 39. All right, so verse 39 in the book of Acts, the 21st chapter. But Paul said, I am a man which am a Jew of Tarshish, a city in Cilicia, a citizen of no mean city. And I beseech thee, suffer me to speak unto the people. Verse 40. And when we had given him license, meaning give him permission to speak, Paul stood on the stairs and beckoned with the hand. So he pretty much calmed the people down. Silence. Unto the people, and when there was made a great silence, he spake unto them in the Hebrew language, saying,
in Hebrew tongue. So, when you read back in verse 39, and Paul talks about, he says, I am a man which of a Jew of Tarshish, a city in Cilicia, a citizen of no mean city, right? So what he's doing to this captain is to now expound upon him, his reputation, because he says a city, he says a citizen of no mean city. When you look in the history behind Tarshish, it was a reputable place. It was a reputable city. You had some cities that had, a lot of fame. Ephesus was one of those big cities. Alexandria was one of those big. You had a lot of cities that had a lot of fame. This was one of them as well, right? So now when Paul says, I'm a citizen of this place, right?
You mean he was a good guy?
No. That means he had a citizenship.
Right.
Right? Just like when you were born in America, you get a citizenship. You have privileges that people who are foreigners don't get. Right? You can now have freedoms and liberties that everybody don't get. Right. So when he's saying that holds weight. I'm gonna read this. We're gonna read this the next time, but I'm gonna read this now. This is Acts 22. Acts 22 and 25. Right? So Paul he was smart and able to use that what he had. Like the Bible tells you, use this world as not abusing it. So he's using his citizenship to gain some privilege and some clout. This is Acts 22:25. It says, and as they bound him with thongs, Paul said unto the centurion that stood by, is it lawful for you to scourge a man that is a Roman and uncondemned? Because again, certain privileges came with being a Roman citizen. You just didn't go out there and treat someone who was a citizen of Rome like any old commoner. So he threw that back into the centurion's face.
Right.
When the centurion heard that, he went and told the chief captain, saying, "Take heed what thou doest, for this man is a Roman." But we know Paul was a Jew, but he was a Roman citizen, so he got privileges. Verse 27, then the chief captain came and said unto him, "Tell me, art thou a Roman?" He said, "Yeah." And the chief captain answered, "With a great sum obtained I this freedom." And Paul said, "But I was freeborn," right? So the captain, like, listen, for me to get this, I had to shut out a lot of money. Not a few, a lot of money to gain that title. Paul was like, well, I ain't had to do that because I was born here. Or I was born there. Same thing like here.
Like a Jamaican will come over here today, or somebody from another city will come over today, they just have to pay money for the citizenship.
Right, you got to go
to a regular person.
Exactly. Exactly. So that's what Paul. So now with that came the clout of saying, hey, you just can't go and treat me any old way.
Right.
Because now I could go and say, yo, that's how you treat a Roman citizen.
And they said, who did that to a Roman citizen? He did that. Hey, make sure you pay attention. Watch what you're doing to this guy, because he's a Roman. And it's like, oh, okay, I gotta handle him a certain way. So think about that. So now when you look at it in that perspective, this is back during the time of the Romans, that they had a distinction of class. If you was a Roman citizen, you had certain privileges. If you was not, then you probably treated any old kind of way. That's the same thing now. Certain people based on class, you up a certain way. Like you
whatever you want to classify it, that's the vernacular on how you would use to look down upon somebody.
Right?
So when you
say that a lot in
social media and movies,
like how these mob
movies,
a lot of
the way they talk about us,
they say down.
give it to the niggas.
Give it to the six, right?
So you don't get favors.
Or we don't
get privileges like everybody else. You gotta be treated like the worst. You gotta reach a thing when I'm talking. It's a lot of feedback.
Oh, okay.
So now
this now gives us a carryover to say, okay, cool. We see how even back then, being a citizen and having clout also allowed others to be able to get an upper hand on something. But Paul was smart in using it. Not everybody is, right? That's another learning or teaching lesson, to say I can use even certain things that Esau has given me for my own benefit, right? If it means that I can, elevate or give certain privilege or a stand to go and say something or do something, I'm gonna use it, right? I ain't gotta be, I ain't gotta operate. You know how you got some brothers now who say they gotta be sovereign. I'm a distance myself from anything America. I ain't a part of this country. But look at these men. Yahushua didn't. Paul didn't. So where is this that everybody pushing this sovereignty and we're gonna cut off us? Nah, you could still use what we have gained or what we have now been subject to in our captivity for our own greater gain. And that's what Paul did.
All right, so that's the end of Paul speaking in this chapter. And it's finished, and I like how it ends the chapter and beginning the one. This is in the Hebrew tongue, saying to be continued. So what's the next chapter reading, Councilman?
Ecclesiasticus in the Apocrypha, chapters 17, 18. Right.
Ecclesiasticus in the Apocryphas, chapter
17 and 18.
17 and 18. Ecclesiasticus in the Apocrypha, chapter 17 and 18 for the next reading. So I hope everyone who had a chance to follow the service get edified and have loads of scriptures to review and put in your arsenals to teach Israel who they are, their nationality, in the kingdom of God. So with that, I'm going to say stay tuned for the closing prayer.